For the next question, we need to mention with the help of a flow chart, we need to describe the theory of evolution. Right? Now, this is going to be a slightly lengthy question. So, let's have a look at the different points. First of all, we need to mention that life would have started on Earth in the form of certain basic chemicals. The mixture of these chemicals together would be called as the protoplasm, probably the ancestor, the precursor for our cytoplasm that exists today. Right. So, according to the theory of evolution, first living material, which is the protoplasm, that must have formed in the ocean. Now, with time, obviously what happened was complexity, these chemical reactions started becoming more and more complex, and that would have given rise to the first cell. But before that, let's have a look at this word over here, protoplasm. We can split it in two parts, protoplasm, right? Not a very complicated word, so I'm quite sure you can get this one. Alright, now about the new cell being formed, we mentioned that in the second point. In due course of time, unicellular organisms were formed. Once these unicellular organisms were formed on Earth, complexity started to increasing. They started increasing in size. They started becoming more complex, right? And different types of creatures started emerging on Earth. That is what we mentioned over here. Gradually, changes occurred in the unicellular organisms from which larger and more complex organisms were formed. Now, all these changes, they were multi-dimensional changes. They were not only happening with respect to one aspect, with respect to different aspects. So, all those changes were slow and gradual first of all. They did not happen overnight. It took thousands of years for even one change to take place, right? And these accumulated changes only lead to the complexity increasing, right? So, duration of all these changes was about 300 crore years. You can imagine that's a very long period of time for all these changes to happen. Right? Then changes and development in the living organisms have been all round and multidimensional, right? Which led to the evolution of different types of organisms. As we discussed, the changes did not only happen with respect to one aspect of the body, they happened with respect to so many different aspects. So they were multidimensional changes, they were all round changes inside the body, right? Hence this overall process is called as evolution, which is organizational, right? It's an organizational change happening inside the body. Right. So, in the next point, we talk about what exactly is evolution. We try to define it. So, it is the progressive development. Evolution cannot be non-progressive. It has to be progressive with time. It lead to development of the organism. So, progressive development of plants and animals. Now, who are they developing from? They are developing from their ancestors, right? So, from the ancestors. Now, did they have exactly the same characteristics and biological features as compared to their ancestors? Do we have the same biological features like our ape ancestors? No, we do not, right? So, from the ancestors having different structural and functional organization, they had a different body structure, different body organization, right? And that is exactly what is called as evolution. So, we have defined what is evolution. Now, we have different evidences to believe that evolution actually happened on this earth. Right? So, to support the theory of evolution, various types of evidences are now available, and we are going to go through these different evidences. First, we are going to talk about, so in spite of the many adaptive differences in the protoplasm and the cell. So, first is a very basic type of evidence. So, there are so many differences that exist, definitely, right? The manifestation of life processes like growth, reproduction, metabolism are essentially the same in all the living organisms. There are differences, but for the basic functional organization of the cell or for the functions of the cell, there is a lot of similarity also. And the similarity is for all these different things that we saw, for growth, for reproduction, for metabolism, right? This is a very big evidence that all different living organisms probably came from a common ancestor. This is how we indirectly try to prove evolution. First, we will talk about plants, the different structure of the plants being similar to each other, right? But before that, let's have a look at this word over here, manifestation, right? So, we can split it as manifestation. We can split it into three parts. Now, let's have a look at the similarities in the different types of plants. So, morphological evidences support this theory, right? Morphology is the study of external structures. This theory supports the theory of evolution. Let's have a look at this word over here, morphological. We can split it in two words, not a very complicated word, morpho, which means form, and logical, right? The study of morph or the form of a living creature. So, we study about the plants over here. It is seen that all plants have stem, root, leaf and are green in color. Not all the plants, but most of them in fact have root, stem, leaf, right? And they are pretty similar to each other, right? They are green in color. They can perform photosynthesis. This definitely is a similarity in all plants. So this tells us that all plants might have evolved from a common ancestor. And why only plants? We have anatomical similarities in animals as well. Anatomy is the study of internal structures. In our example, we are going to take the specific example of bones, right? The bones of these creatures, the human's hand, the foreleg of the ox, the flipper of the whales and the patagium of the bat, right? So we are going to understand about them. Similarly, it is seen that animals have appendages, eyes, nose, ears, etc. These are morphological similarities from external view. And internal view, we have the anatomical similarities. Let's have a look at the word appendages over here, right? We can split it into two parts, appendages, okay? Now, the anatomical evidences like the bone structure of a human's arm, as I was telling you, a bull's leg, a bat's wing, and the flipper of the whale, all these are similar. In what terms? In terms of their joints, right? That tells us that these creatures might have also come from a common ancestor. Other than that, we have vestigial organ, which becomes our next evidence, right? So vestigial organs like the tailbone or the coccyx present in human, it indicates that there is a link between humans and monkeys or primates, because monkeys still have a tail. We do not, but we have a tailbone, which is a vestigial organ. It was useful for our ancestors. Right now it is no longer useful. So that's a vestigial organ over here, right? And at the embryological level, when we compare the different embryos of different creatures, especially that of the vertebrates, in the initial stages, we are not able to distinguish between which is a human embryo, which is a pig embryo, which is a fish embryo. It's very difficult to do that. As time passes by, the embryos develop and changes started to emerge. So this is the embryological evidence. So at the embryological level, similarities are observed during the initial stages, which indicate the common origin, right? So thus there are a few evidence which support the fact that evolution is sequential. It happens in a sequential manner.